Welcome to Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Mark Gillen of the 128th Legislative District in Berks and Lancaster County. I'm here at the 96th Pennsylvania Farm Show. This is the premier event for agriculture, which is the Commonwealth's #1 industry. The dual mission of the show is to highlight and honor our farmers and food producers while educating the non-farming public about the industry. Joining me now to discuss some current farming issues is the Secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, George Gregg. Welcome, Mr. Gregg.
Welcome to you.
I'm pleased to be here with you. It's the 96th annual farm show, and how many farm shows is it for you?
Well, this is my first as Secretary of Agriculture, so it's quite a change because before I was always a visitor, a consumer, and now I get to see the behind the scenes and what makes the farm show work. I get to find out how much work, how many months in advance they start working on the farm show and how to pull off a good farm show. So.
Now, we've talked about the front end and the behind the scenes. What do you anticipate in the teardown, and when will we see the last of the workers, animals, and support staff leave this arena complex?
Well, that's this coming weekend will be the last weekend for the farm show, and then we'll start working on next year's farm show because they're constantly working on that. There's a lot of events here at the farm show. This building is pretty intimidating in itself. There's 24 acres under roof here, 1 million square feet in the building, and it's quite intimidating, quite a ways across when you're going from one end to the next.
Right. You're a dairy farmer.
That's
you
correct.
Raise crops. Are you a little partial when you come to the farm show? I know you're the secretary for the entire Commonwealth, but do you go into this event looking for certain things or maybe being partial to a certain animal or area?
I was a dairy farmer for 30 years. My brother and I were in partnership. We bought the farm off of my parents in 1976. But I'm here for all parts of agriculture. I said that right off the bat that I was going to be here for all parts of agriculture. So I try not to be partial to dairy farmers, but dairy is the largest section of agriculture. However, we have it all here at the farm show. You know, we have over 6,000 head of livestock, and that's not just dairy cows. We have 10,000 exhibits. Like you said, 400,000 people plus come to visit. So it's a great celebration of agriculture, and it's something that's needed because in some areas we are 4 or 5 generations away from the family farm, and our youth of today needs to see where their food comes from.
Can I talk to you briefly about the character development component of this? You were raised on a dairy farm, got a crop farm. I've got 4 daughters, all of them under 12 years of age. I purchased an agricultural property recently. Someone said, what are you going to raise on it? I said children, because I think it's an excellent opportunity for them. What do you have in terms of advice for me at a personal level and for others who are contemplating agriculture as a vocation and a career?
It's a great way of life. You know, I grew up on a farm, and I wouldn't change that for the world. And I have 6 children of my own, and they all grew up. All of my kids, except for Rachel, who is in FFA, have graduated, moved on to their own industry, their own jobs. But it's a great way of life, and something that you can't pass up. It gives you that work ethic that you can't get anywhere else. And it's great training for Secretary of Agriculture because this job is not a 9-to-5 job. So it is the work ethic and the training and what I think our youth of today needs.
In closing, we hear a lot about the graying of agriculture in Pennsylvania and other states. What do you see in the future for agriculture in Pennsylvania?
Well, that's a constant concern of ours. You know, are we going to maintain our farms and our farming operations and farming industries? Night before last, we graduated 280 kids from the FFA got their Keystone degrees. So 4-H celebrates their 100th year this year. The butter sculpture is commemorative of 4-H and the Pennsylvania Fair Association. Both of those organizations are vital to the agriculture community, and they both turn 100 years old this year.
That sounds good.
The 4-H program started as a corn growing contest in Mercer County. Now there's 110,000 kids in the 4-H program this year. So.
As I drive around the Commonwealth, I've had that great fortune as a state legislator, and I'm adopting, if you will, a portion of Lancaster County. It's my observation as an untrained individual in agriculture, I see tremendous distinctives, not just in crops and what's being grown in the livestock, but the way agriculture is conducted, if you will, the kinds of equipment that's used. And maybe it's never more as pronounced as it is in my part of Pennsylvania with Lancaster County. Could you just speak for a moment or two about the differences in agricultural production and productivity in different parts of the state?
Well, we have a lot of different soil types in Pennsylvania. It's a very diverse state, and the agriculture is just as diverse. A lot of it came over from the old country, and you know, it continued on for generations. It's passed down, which is what agriculture does. We pass our customs, our beliefs on to our children. So you know, agriculture is very diverse, and Lancaster County has great agriculture. They're the leaders in farmland preservation, and there are just a ton of ag commodities where Lancaster is number one.
Part of your purview is food safety. Am I correct?
That's
okay.
correct.
Now, obviously, you take that responsibility seriously. It's much in the news. What can you tell us about food safety in Pennsylvania and where we're headed in the future?
Pennsylvania leads the nation in food safety. The United States here, we have the safest food supply in the world. And a lot of the programs that FDA has adopted have come from Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has a PCAP program, which is Pennsylvania Egg Quality Assurance Program. We have a lot of food safety programs that our federal government copies off of us. They look for us because we are the leaders. So you can be pretty safe that the food supply that you're going to have in Pennsylvania is pretty safe. And we also have the PA Preferred, which was just passed, which you supported,
yes,
voted for. We appreciate that. The PA Preferred is a great marketing program for our local products. Everyone wants to know where their food comes from. And buying local is one way to know where your food comes from. And it puts dollars back into the local communities.
Well, I'm going to have my entire family here on Friday, my 12, 9, 7, and 3-year-old, and I'm sure they'll be significantly inspired by all that's going on here. I want to thank you for your leadership in agriculture. I have a tremendous confidence in you in moving the state forward and protecting our most important economic engine here in Pennsylvania. So I'm very grateful that you took a couple minutes to visit with me today, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, my friend. I have with me today William Kitch and Gabriel Kitch. As you might see and also might hear, we're in the poultry barn at the 96th Annual Farm Show in Pennsylvania. And so, Will, I'm going to start with you first. You've got a number of contestants entered here. Can you tell us a little bit about your birds and what's required to raise those birds?
I have Americanas, and I've been raising for 7 years. I wash them before I come to the show, wipe them down, wipe their feet, make sure they don't have any parasites or mites or anything like that. Keep them clean.
All right, you mentioned washing them and giving these birds a bath. I know how hard it is sometimes to get a child through a bath. How do birds adjust to a bath? Is it something they enjoy? I know it's something they need. Do they like it?
In the summer, they absolutely love it because it's so hot out, and you give them nice cool water. They just sit in there for a while, too. They can sit in there all day, basically.
How many birds do you have entered into this show?
30.
All right. That is, Will has 30 birds entered into the show. How did you get all these birds here, and what's the average age of the bird?
My average bird is probably 3 years old, or 2 or 3, and we put them in sort of like larger cat carriers for the cockerels, and big dog crates for all the hens.
I'm going to suspect this is probably the most noise that they've heard in a while because it's a cavernous area. They make a lot of noise at home. Was there any adjustment for them being here at the show, Will?
There's a lot more noise. The roosters don't get along in a while because they don't live together. So they have to adjust to if they're next to a boy, they have to adjust to them too, not the noise.
Let me turn to your brother just for a moment because I know you're involved with ducks, but I guess there's some shared responsibility here. You don't just begin and end with ducks, right? You're involved with the other birds?
I'm involved a little bit with the other birds. I help Will when he needs it a lot.
That's a good brother, helping when it's needed. Let me just say one or two other things before we go and look at your champion in another part of the room. How early do these birds get up, and do you have to get up with these birds to feed them and help them out?
They get up at 6. I get up at 6:30 to go out and get them done.
All right, so we're talking 6 to 6:30 up with the birds, and you're saying they get up at 6 and you get up at 6:30?
Yes.
They don't wake you up at 6?
I get used to it, so I don't really actually hear it sometimes because I just sleep through it.
Well, I may have an important decision to make as to whether I want what Will has or what you have, Gabe. What time do the ducks get up in the morning?
Basically they pretty much stay up all night and swim.
Do they make much noise?
Usually they make laughing sounds when you come out to feed them and water them.
Well, I like something about the ducks in that they laugh. I'm not sure I like the staying up all night part. Why don't we do this? We'll take a walk over and we'll look at one of your champions, and you can tell us a little bit about what the judges are looking for when they're analyzing whether a bird is a champion or not. So let's step off in this direction. We've moved over to the reserve grand champion, Large Chicken. I think he's enjoying his status because we've just heard from him. Perhaps you could tell us, Will, what is a judge looking for in making the decision as to whether you've got the grand champion, second, third, or fourth place prize?
They're looking for condition, feather quality. These birds are a dual-purpose bird, so they should be able to. He shouldn't be able to lay eggs, but the hen should be able to be for meat and for eggs. They're looking for his type, not high tail set, good color quality, not changing like rapidly throughout the body.
All right, we've got an Americana over here. Could you tell us what the future of this bird's going to be now that he's a champion? I'm supposing he's not going to be Chicken McNuggets, that he has a brighter future than that.
A very brighter future. We'll probably put him in with a breeding pen with some of my better hens. He'll probably go to a lot more shows throughout his life.
It looks like you put some time into this animal. Early on, did you detect that you had a reserve grand champion? Was there something special about this bird that told you he's got potential?
I did not know he was going to go this far, but I did know he's a very nice bird, so I did put a lot of work into him. I did not know he was going to win Reserve's Large Chicken.
Well, we certainly want to offer our congratulations, and let me say this. Do you get close to a bird? I realize this is not a cat or a dog situation. Does this bird recognize who you are, and is there any exchange of affection, if you will, between you and the grand champion here?
When I come out, they love when I give them scratch, so they run around and they pick at the ground. And when I do have a handful of scratch in my hand, they run over. They're very friendly, so they'll walk over sometimes.
Do you ever get to the point where you name one of your birds? Now, I know your brother's here, and you may be able to answer this question as well. do you name your ducks? Do you have a specific name for your birds? We'll go with your brother first on this, Gabe.
Yes. I have angel wings since she ate too much protein apparently, and their wings go up, and the disease is called angel wings. So I named her Angel Wings. And then I have Ramona, Rosie, Schmeagle, and Sonic, and Tiddlywinks.
There's certainly some very creative names in the mix. How about you, Will?
I have Lee, Pecker Pullet, Sweetie, and a lot more.
Now you've got Lydia, your sister, is here with you. Does she come up with any of these names, or you get a little bit of feminine input on naming these birds?
Sometimes I get some recommendations. Sometimes I have a few birds that I let her name.
Now, there's varmints out there. There's probably fox or even coyote and mink and other things in your area. Is there a predator that especially concerns you? I understand you have dogs, but let's suppose you didn't have dogs. What would you have to look out for in the way of protecting your birds? And you may have an answer to this first, Gabe.
Raccoons, falcons, if they come from the top, and yeah.
What about that, Will? Anything do you think of?
Raccoons are probably one of the raccoons and hawks and falcons. The falcons love a fresh dinner, so they're easy to pick off if you don't have a netting over top of them. Raccoons, you should put them in so they don't come into your cage and eat them.
I don't live very far away from you, and I drive by the house and I see there are dogs out there on a regular basis. A closing question for this segment: is there a particular breed of dog that you look for to protect livestock and birds and ducks in general that would be gentle with the animals as well as protective against the varmints?
All dog breeds are gonna want to have get a hand on them, but the Rhodesian Ridgebacks, if you tame them since they're a puppy, you don't let them get into the cage, but you let them see the birds and protect them. There's a lot of other breeds, herding breeds, they might keep them out also.
Do you want to add anything to that in terms of the dogs?
I think that we want a medium-sized dog that isn't too shaggy to leave hair around the house, and I think we don't want small dogs that much.
Are you suggesting that my Chihuahua will not work as a guard dog?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. How about if we do this, Gabe? We'll take a look at the ducks that you're showing, and we'll take a walk in that direction and see what you've entered in the farm show. Gabe, you've got some mighty attractive ducks over here, and I'm going to be honest with you. It's hard for me to distinguish the difference between the ducks you're showing and some that I might see in the wild. So we're going to rely on your trained eye now. I want you to tell us what some of the differences are.
Well, you probably saw mallards in the wild. So, the difference between that is, well, these are grays. For the instance, they're called grays. And, mallards, usually they have a lot, more orange feet. And, grays, you don't usually see that much in the wild.
I'm going to look a lot more carefully, I guarantee that, because I have the Wyomissing Creek that flows behind my house, and I think you're right now that I think about it. The ones I see out there have much more orange-looking feet. Now, how old are these birds that you're showing here, and can you tell us a little bit about how you take care of them?
They're young birds. For instance, Sonic here is 6 months old. We bought them and we raised them up.
Sonic is the name of this bird. I'm going to guess you've named him after a fast food restaurant. Is that right?
No. He would be uncomfortable if I named him about a fast food restaurant.
Now, I noticed we got a little barrier over here. We have a rivalry going on. How well do ducks socialize with other strange ducks?
They do it pretty well. They get their heads through the crate usually, and they try to pick on their beak and their feathers and try to like rip one out usually. You don't want that happening.
I see why we have the cardboard. A final question. The judges decided that you were a prize winner. How did they determine that based on the look, the mannerisms of your duck versus another?
They thought mine was a good winner because the ring around its neck, it has a ring. Usually drakes that don't have a ring, gray drakes that don't have a ring are disqualified. They looked at its primaries, which are good. If there's any white feather in the call grays primaries, then it's immediately disqualified. They looked at the beak to see if a gray's beak is yellow, then it's disqualified too.
Well, I'll tell you what, Gabe, you've really given us an education here on Bantam ducks, and I'm very grateful for that. And in just a few moments, we'll spend some time with the entire family, and we'll get Mom and Lydia's perspective on ducks, birds, and the farm life in general. Thanks so much, Gabe. Well, we've got the entire Kitch family here, save Dad. Mr. William Kitch is not with us, but we got his two sons, and we have Mom and Lydia here. Now, Lydia, we did not get you on camera up until this point, and I'm going to bet that you probably got a pet or two at home. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're responsible for in terms of animals back home?
Our cat,
And what is your cat's name?
Ollie.
Ollie? Now, is the cat at the farm show? Do they have cats and dogs at the farm show?
No,
None that I've seen anyway. And do you ever get involved with the birds that we've seen, the ducks or the bantams?
not a lot.
You leave that to the big guys to take care of that. And if I can just say a word to Mom, I'm sure there's some inherent advantages in having the children involved in agriculture. Can you tell us some of the character development attributes that rise out of being involved in agriculture?
Sure. I think a lot of there's a lot of responsibility involved in caring for an animal. You have another creature that is solely dependent on you. And for our boys, particularly Lydia, might have a chance coming up soon. But right now with the boys and the birds, it's been a great way for them to learn that responsibility, to learn money. We're constantly paying for generally feed bills, and so they've handled money, they've sold birds, had a lot of experiences to interact with other people, a lot of adults too, and I think that's an important part of them growing up as young men, to be able to talk and express themselves and interact with other kids as well as adults, to have kind of a small business going, so to speak. And to have that responsibility of raising an animal and being the sole person in charge of it.
Christine, could you just speak for a moment on your own background? And since we've known one another for a number of years, you have a bit of an agricultural background and training, both you and your husband, Bill. Could you share some of that, please?
Sure. Both Bill and I, yes, we do have degrees, and I have a degree in animal science, and Bill in ag business. So we do, for us, it's been probably a little easier maybe than for some folks to delve back into the agricultural end of things. We do have an understanding and background of it, but really it's just a lot of fun and a lot of great opportunities for anybody wanting to. It has been easier for us, and our college degrees and education has made that easier, but it's certainly feasible for anyone.
So in closing, you would recommend this to any family who has a little extra space, a little bit of initiative. There's some character development opportunities here. Am I getting the sense that anybody could do this over time? They need to lean on people that have a little bit of background, perhaps in getting started?
Oh, sure. I think it's important to find a good mentor, find somebody that's knows what they're doing, to be able to go to them for advice. And I think the biggest thing is just in today's society, we don't know where our food comes from. And so being able to go back to the source, to know where those eggs, where the meat, where the fruits and vegetables actually come from at a grassroots level is very vital. It doesn't come from the grocery store. That's where we might get it from, but that's not where it originates.
Well, I want to thank you, Christine and Lydia and Will and Gabe. I think it's been educational for me, certainly, and I'm very confident as folks take a look at this on the cable program, they're going to be delighted. Congratulations to both of you gentlemen as prize winners here at the Pennsylvania Farm Show. Thank you so much. When you drive down a rural road past the barn, are you able to imagine what goes on inside? A massive display at this year's show opens the barn door and gives folks a peek at how the animals inside are cared for.
From farm gate to dinner plate was the theme of this year's show. One of the best demonstrations of this theme was the Today's Agriculture display, a giant barn filled with animals. The goal was to show the care of animals in modern farming.
A lot of consumers really have a misconception about how animals are raised. So we kind of wanted to open the doors to each segment. So each thing here is a snapshot of what you'd see if you went into a broiler house, a duck house, a layer house, to kind of give consumers an idea and say, hey, we're opening the doors. We want you to actually get rid of those misconceptions and to trust us. Because there's a lot of distrust there where people think, they think farms are corporately owned when the fact is most farms are actually family farms.
What I think it's going to allow them to see is that they put the misnomer aside, that when the animals are in these facilities that they drive by every day, that they're not packed in like sardines, so to speak, that they're not being mistreated, that they don't have light, they don't have water, and a lot of these things that you hear out there about the mistreatments of animals and stuff. And when you look at some of the exhibits, the poultry here is a good example of it, of the automatic feeders and the water and the heat lamps, and those are things that you would find in these modern facilities today, so that we can keep the animals healthy, growing well, growing fast, so that they can put a product on the consumer's table.
Volunteers from each industry fielded questions about what the animals eat, their life cycle, and the design of their pens.
The crowd has been unbelievable. It's been pretty much jam-packed for the last 4 days. People are asking a lot of good questions, and they're really getting into it. I think people like seeing how animals are raised. They're making the connection that my eggs are coming from this type of system, and that's exciting for me to see.
Well, that's why we kept her home from school today, to bring her down to see how things actually go from the farm to your house.
Feed crops like soybeans and corn were displayed outside of the barn to demonstrate the ways of increasing yields for a society that continues to demand more food.
McDonald's keeps adding restaurants, and Sheetz gas stations. They keep adding, gas stations that serve food, and these places are going to demand more food, and we had to find better ways to get it and stuff too. So through modern technologies, we found what are the best ways we can keep the animals healthier, which ways we can make the corn grow faster and more efficiently, so when it's harvested, we get the most from the production.
The grain, the soybean meal, the corn, all takes water, and so we've got to be efficient converters of feed into food.
Sponsors of the exhibit hope that the hundreds of visitors were educated and will now think twice about the food on their plate and the local farmer who supplied it.
That's all the time we have for today's program. I'm State Representative Mark Gillen. As you've watched this profile of the 96th PA Farm Show, I hope you've gained a greater appreciation for agriculture and its importance to our Commonwealth. If you have any question about today's program or any state government matter, please contact me at my local office. The address and number will be shown in a moment. Thanks for watching, and please join me next time for another edition of Legislative Report.